Ghost Coat Magazine welcomes in the guys from Ambassador. How are you guys doing today?
Good. Pretty good. Thanks. How are you?
I'm hanging in there, considering it's the end of the world. Um,
Yeah, forever.
as I'm fond of saying, like 25, 35 years of all kinds of metal, we're finally getting all those prophecies and terrible things come true from all our album covers and lyrics.
Yeah, right.
But congratulations on your new album, Caravale. I'm stoked on it. Really great job. A slight different album than Belly of the Whale was, but still you guys. Before we talk about new stuff and kind of unpack this new record, I definitely wanted to this is the first time I'm actually getting to chat with you guys. So I always like to just find out how you guys formed as a band and sort of what put you on the path to get to where you are today.
Yeah. Well, kind of two parallel stories. So Dustin and I have been friends for quite a while. We played music together kind of back in high school and things, which was, quite a few years ago, obviously. But you know, probably around 2013, we got together and I was actually playing drums. He was on guitar, and we started to kind of write some just really kind of spacey. We would just get in the band room and just kind of zone out, some really kind of ambient type stuff. No intentions to really. We recorded some things, the rehearsals, but no really intentions to make it, a project. We had, someone kind of come in and jam with us on occasion, but nothing terribly serious. Well, we did that for a year or so, and that kind of not really fizzled out, but I mean, we got busy.
Yeah, it ran its course.
Yeah, it ran its course, and so I got a call from Jason, who is our other guitar player, one day randomly, and I've known Jason from bands back in the day, but we weren't, really close friends or anything. But we had mutual friends. He gave me a call. He was like, "Look, I want to do this really rock-based, kind of traditional rock song structure, big riff kind of project, and I want you to sing." And so at the time, I was really into a lot of more ambient kind of post-type music. And it didn't sound terribly appealing, but I knew that he was a good musician, so it was interesting. So we started to write. We got a few people in there, kind of doing that big riff kind of sound. But over time, I started to kind of write a little bit on bass, some riffs here and there, and we started to work on the songs. And I was sort of secretly pushing the project into a more kind of post project. And so it started to get more kind of ambassador sounding. And we tried out a few members. And of course, when you write songs, you get a new person in. The drum beat changes a little bit, everything kind of adjusts. So, eventually Ian joined us. We got a bass player, and we started to sound like Ambassador, the original Ambassador. So we played shows without Dustin. After a while, I kind of said, "Hey, look, I think we could use a second guitarist." And Dustin and I work well together. I knew that Jason and Dustin would really click. So we recorded most of Belly of the Whale, and then toward the tail end of it, Dustin came on board, and he basically recorded at his home and laid like his thing on top of it. So that was really Belly of the Whale. It was not really an afterthought. Everything felt organic enough. We made a complete album out of it. But this go around is obviously a bit different because all of these songs were written with us all in the same room. Once we start kind of settling on a sound, and I'm sure Dustin has some comments on it, but that's kind of the genesis of it.
Yeah, and for this album, going back to Belly, I mean, they brought me in and, they just wanted me to fill space a little bit, and that was right up my alley because, I mean, that's what I like to do is create those textures. So I knew that's what Gabe wanted. Me and Gabe's, very tight on knowing what each other likes.
So same favorite bands and things like
right.
that.
So so I knew what kind of spice he wanted on it. So I just came in and kind of laid a texture over Belly, and a few little standout parts here, but for the most part, it was already written. It was well written, and so I don't want to rock the boat too much. On this album, of course, like you said, we started from a ground up approach with the four of us in here. Although the song Caravale did come from me and Gabe's earlier project when, he was playing drums. And it was just something that we recorded, and we kind of revisited a few of those songs, and, that one kept coming back up. And we really liked the meaning behind it, the tones and the sound. It kind of seemed like a good little change of pace that would fit in with everything else we were writing at the time. But it worked out pretty good.
Nice, man. Thank you for that backstory. Yeah, it's definitely very interesting. I was going to ask about what are those favorite bands, or what are the bands where you guys have like the Venn diagram that overlaps?
Yeah, well, mine's a little different. I'll let Dustin talk more specifics about his guitar inspiration.
Yeah, well, I mean, I can talk about guitar inspiration all I want, but I can't. The guitars I'm inspired by, I can't do what they do, you know. But so I have some obscure guitar players that I like. Rabia Massad's one of my favorites. Of course, he's phenomenal technically, and I don't view myself as a super technical guitar player. Like I say, I like to play with the textures on the A side and on the B side. I like to I riff it out, and a lot of it comes from the bass tone, and I get more inspired by tone of guitar players more than their technical playing, because that's something that's more achievable for me, to hear a tone I like, and okay, I like that. A different tone can make a riff sound totally different.
Yeah,
So
I mean, my idea of the project, I mean, so some of my current favorite bands, just kind of within the time frame, I guess, for this project, Dustin and I really got into a lot of the instrumental kind of post stuff that was coming out of Sargent House, like Red Sparrows and even like ISIS and Pelican, bands like that. And I went I'm a vocalist, and oddly, I listened to bands for quite a few years that didn't have vocals. So when it came down to like putting vocals to that type music and stuff, it was a little tricky at times. But we grew up listening to a lot of stuff like in the late '90s and stuff like your Deftones. We all grew up on Metallica, and of course we're from Louisiana, so
you get your Acid Bath in there.
Yeah, Acid Bath and Crowbar and stuff like that. Were really our favorite bands growing up, and of course, I mean, maybe you find hints of that in Ambassador at times, but our backgrounds are, when I was in college, I didn't listen to as much heavy music. I was into a lot like Fleet Foxes and things like that. And I know Dustin likes a lot of kind of, what do you call it? What are some of these pop bands?
Like, dream
pop type stuff.
Yeah. And textual stuff.
Yeah, I mean, even synthy stuff at time and electronics. So we listen to a lot of different stuff. We don't really, we're not hardcore kind of stuck in any kind of genres or pride ourselves on being part of any specific scene. Just a wide range of, really most of it though is really kind of emotional and heavy, not through distorted guitars, but heavy just emotionally, and the note choice and the flow and things like that. Stuff that kind of hits your heart, makes you feel a little sad, a little bit on the darker side, stuff like that. So
yeah, a lot of the influences are kind of just woven in the fabric of us, and it doesn't, necessarily, it's not obvious, comes out as an influence, but I think it's just such a vast array of all these influences that it kind of just melded who we are together.
Yeah.
Because I think the four of us, what Ambassador is a product of us being in here. And I think if we were to all kind of separate ourselves, there would be a totally different sound that would come out of, if you were to change one piece.
Right on, right on. Actually, lyrically, it's funny. I like going through the Bandcamp, and I love that you guys have the lyrics all in there. And I got like a very Dax Riggs kind of thing, which is interesting, like very moody, gothy, unintentional goth kind of stuff that
Yeah.
I like a lot myself. I like, just for whatever reason, closet goth over here, despite being a big metal guy and a prog guy. And then musically, yeah, I get those references. I also, I noted Russian Circles. I think Rosetta is a good, one-to-one for you guys a little bit before they started doing vocals not too long ago. And even a band like Junius, which is a little under the radar, but like a super cool band that I think you guys remind me a little bit of them vocally as well as just musically. So good company to keep. And and there's a bunch more, Caspian, and so many good bands.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, Dax, like we grew up listening to everything Dax did here in Louisiana. It's kind of pride of the South, and he gets hated on a little bit these days, but I don't really care. You know, for a while, you know, people would comment and say I sounded like Dax, and I didn't really like that very much. You know, it was partially a comment, but you know, I mean, you're not trying to rip people off, but I think one thing that I really took from growing up listening to his music is how he paints a picture. So he can sort of put you in a landscape and describe that landscape at times. And our music is sort of, you know, audio, you know, audible kind of landscapes in a way, is the way I take it, you know, so the vocals are fitting to kind of, you know, play on that same kind of thing. So
Nice. And then I noticed that I don't know if it was kind of part and parcel of, you know, sort of a new dynamic with Dustin in the band, but I noticed that the album, it's not necessarily much shorter, the two records, but Belly's a little longer. I think obviously more songs and different kinds of compositions, but I feel like the compactness of the songwriting of Caravale, you know, it's got the style of the band and nothing is, you know, omitted, but I also dig that it's kind of like a little, I think, tighter overall.
yeah, you know, I mean, some of the criticism of Belly was that it wasn't quite as immediately gratifying, which I don't think we tried to do that and we ever will. But Belly did require you to kind of sit down and spin it quite a few times. And in today's world, when you're trying to market music, that's really problematic. You know, and I mean, we still deal with that, and we probably always will. You know, you don't listen to the first 30 seconds of Ambassador and really understand what we're about. But you know,
I hear you. The whole genre is really a grower though, and like there's very few bands. Like ISIS is unique because they were also very heavy and
right.
could do like very explosive songs right out of the gate and then chill it down. So like I don't think, you know, like I hear what you're saying. I think you have to just make music number one to please you and to satisfy yourself, and then hopefully if people dig it, that's really cool. But like yeah, I hear you, man. They're both great records. I mean, you know, Belly, you also got a lot of props for Belly, and I think it's a record that kind of puts you guys on the map. But I think this is obviously, I think where the band is and heading clearly.
Yeah, I mean, the amount of time that we took to write this record was obviously a lot less. You know, they say you have your entire life to write your first album, you know, and then a year to write the second or whatever. But
Yeah.
so we literally did have forever to write Belly, and it was really, you know, like I said, like a step-by-step process. You know, every time a new member kind of came in, it changed a bit. Lots of different iterations of the songs. And you know, Dustin likes to think that he just kind of layered atmosphere on top, but he obviously did a lot more than that in Belly. But this go around, you know, we were rehearsing to play live shows for probably a year after the release of Belly. And then it was like, well, okay, we need to write a new record. So we took the time and kind of dove in, but we were all together. We made the change. You know, Jeremy Forsey was our bass player in Belly. And you know, we just kind of felt like I had played guitar in the past, you know, not as much as these guys, but you know, enough to be able to pick up bass and understand it. But one thing I did have is a pretty clear kind of idea of what I wanted the bass to sound like, which was, you know, a little dirtier, a little simpler, more locked in with the kick, and things like that. So once we were able to get in here and write with me on the bass, communication was a lot easier. So I didn't have to communicate to, you know, to the former bassist kind of what I envisioned for that part. You know, and when you're in a room all playing together, everyone's loud, you're fighting over the drummer, you're trying to have a conversation, the drummer's hitting cymbals and all that. But it was more like straightforward, kind of clear communication. And then of course we benefited from that move with just the bass and the drums kind of locked in more, just, you know, kind of hit you a little harder. And of course the timing of the vocals actually changed quite a bit. You know, where the vocals are more singing along with the rhythmic kind of feel of the music rather than floating on top as they were in Belly.
Yeah, not to mention that, you know, in the last setup we got Gabe here, you know, we couldn't really go on long instrumental runs because, you know, it kind of just leaves Gabe standing there, and you know he's way too talented to just be standing on the edge of the
Yeah.
stage taking up space. So the energy that you hear from the record, I think, in this, and the immediacy, a lot of that comes from, I think, Gabe playing bass, and you know, and he's more locked in. He feels more in the fabric of the band, and I think that kind of played out on the album. But yeah, the little bit of more of immediacy was kind of a focal point for us. And
A lot of it was things that we wanted to address that we thought were lacking in our live show as well. When it comes to just wanting to hit people, like we write music where we wanted to kind of take you to another world and zone you out. We don't really care if you clap that much. We don't want to talk to the crowd, and we would sort of get in these situations where I felt like I needed to kind of speak, because I'm standing there at a mic. I don't dance on stage, you know, and so we're not that band, so you could see how it could get awkward at times. And it was just this, I'm truly comfortable now with the guitar in my hand, and kind of being part of the music as well. I feel like I'm part of the unit rather than this kind of, because I've always been a little anti frontman to a certain extent. I'm not really into that, idea of this, attractive frontman up front that, gets oohs and ahs and things like that. And not that I'd get them anyway, but you know what I mean.
I got you. I used to sing in bands. I know. Nobody was winning on over me. Trust me. Even when I had like beautiful long hair, nobody was. Not at all. What's interesting also, Gabe, is I wanted to kind of touch on this. Obviously, you have a very interesting background where you kind of play all the instruments too. Do you think that sort of aids in the songwriting process? Can it get in the way sometimes because you also know like how to play things? I know some bands when you have multiple people
both.
chiming in. Both? Okay.
Yeah. I mean, I guess my technical abilities when it comes to describing what I want to do in a song, I don't have any musical training, or anything like that. So it's kind of me sometimes trying to communicate, the idea or kind of what I'm thinking, not using the right words and maybe not communicating it properly. I'm more like, if I'm trying to describe a drum beat, to end kind of what I have in mind, I'm like on the chest, that type thing. And we kind of communicate, like I kind of communicate like a caveman musically at times. But it's been quite different. I think that, doing everything, I would have conversations with Ian, and Ian really likes a lot of kind of Americana type music. His drum styling, he grew up, we played in bands together, years back. He's started off as a metal drummer, but he wasn't necessarily into so much of the post rock and post metal type stuff. So, he and I would have a lot of conversations about kind of what I envisioned as far as the drums, just a little more simple, a little more kind of,
washy
cymbals and missing snare hits and different things like that. So, as far as the vision, it was communicated effectively, but not always easily.
I got you. I always think about a situation like Aerosmith where Steven Tyler also played drums as a young guy. So he spent their entire, even though Joey Kramer is like one of the greatest drummers ever, you always hear about the beef between them. And like in Joey's book, he's like, Steven is always picking on me, man. Like, so you don't ever want to get that situation. Not to bring up some BS on Aerosmith, but like you don't want that situation when you're trying to create a sound with a band.
Yeah, no, Ian's totally, man, he's totally open. He's so phenomenal. He's so talented that that's all he needs is to, once he understands what we want, I mean, he pulls it off and makes it even better than what we even imagined, once he gets it. But being, kind of having a different sound that he listens to, rather than me and Gabe. And then,
I'm sure that
we kind of push him to that way, then once he gets it, man, he's off and running. And man.
But it is interesting because he, since he doesn't listen to a lot of that type music, when he sort of plays like they do, it's not going to be exactly like they do.
Yeah, so it ends up being unique, and it doesn't sound copycat or anything, because he's still doing things that are unique to his style, and it shines through, so it works pretty good.
Yeah, I think most of my input, the benefits from kind of playing the different instruments is more kind of the feel. It's more related to the rhythm section in a way, and of course my vocals sort of come after the fact a lot of times. But
we almost take an approach of almost writing an instrumental album on this album, like very close to it, then he came back and layered his vocals on the top.
Yeah.
Like the vocals didn't necessarily drive many parts. Let's say we kind of created the landscape first.
Yeah. I mean, I had some rough kind of framework in place as we were writing the songs, but I never like to really lock anything in until I get in the studio, because when you're in the kind of loud environment and you're singing things, a lot of times you can get behind the mic in the studio and it's just not cutting it. So you have to kind of go back to the drawing board, rework things. So a lot of that, but it was really me getting used to playing the bass in the band and focusing on the craft of playing bass and kind of getting that out the way. So, I mean, you've probably seen, I mean, we say we recorded the instruments in 2 days, kind of all together. The vocals came after. So we were able to kind of get the live energy of all the instrumentation, and then take the proper time to do the vocals and write the right lyrics and, work that out after the fact. So
Very cool. Kind of reminds me of another band I like, The Ocean. Even though they're a little more post-metal than post-rock, they definitely have that same approach. So it's very cool. I'm always curious about scenes. And obviously, look, we live in an unprecedented, I know that word gets totally beat to death. It's a tough time in the world. And I certainly hope you guys are well and none of your families or friends or band people have been ill or, whatever's going on in the world. But I'm always curious about scenes, and obviously a lot of people know NOLA, right? Is literally the fabric of American music is from NOLA. But what's it like in your town, and are you guys an anomaly of a band in that city, or are there other bands like you locally that you guys could all play to gigs together when there were or are gigs again?
there's no one that sounds quite like us. I mean, we always find ourselves kind of trying to fit in on not a true mixed bill, but for the most part,
Usually we're either way too heavy or we're not even close to being heavy enough. We're usually.
Yeah, because I mean, like there's the indie crowd. I mean, we don't really appeal to the mid-20s, early 30s kind of indie people very much. And then of course, if we play with heavier bands, we don't give them exactly what they want when they're whiskey bent and ready to get wild, which we enjoy that too. So like we have the awareness to know that, okay, we're not giving them what they want. We would want more in that setting. But I mean, I know you probably know Forming the Void. They're from Lafayette, so we played shows with them. Like Radiant Knife, as soon as we can start playing live again, I'd love to play with them. And there's a few bands around town that we mix well enough with.
Mm-hmm.
But not perfectly, so it's always really a challenge for us to kind of find our scene, and I mean our local scene is it's pretty good for Baton Rouge. There's a little bit of a lack of venues. This is pre-COVID, there was somewhat of a lack of venues, but a few kind of DIY type places started to pop up. So I mean, we'll play everything from a DIY with a couple 12-inch PA speakers to really promoting and getting a good crowd at, like, say, Varsity Theater in Baton Rouge. That it's like an 800 cap venue. But the scenes between Baton Rouge, Lafayette, and New Orleans are fairly different. New Orleans the city is a scene itself, and then you have the outside of the city, like the Metairie scene, is a little different. But a lot of sludgy stuff. Just to sum it up, I mean, really, most of the time the bands are like a lot heavier than us, or just more in the kind of indie realm, or like more recently, kind of the more progressive kind of clean guitar sound. So yeah, that's where we are in the scene. But we've been able to be respected enough in these shows. If we just hop on a bill, if we're headlining the local show and our people and fans are the primary ones that are going to be there, that works out obviously a bit better. But when we do that, we try to curate the lineups to our benefit. So those are the times where we invite Forming the Void, and certain bands like that, just so it meshes a bit more. We don't sound exactly like them, but the darker kind of head trip kind of vibe or headspace is where we are. So we at least try to get that. The music may sound different, but if you have that zone out kind of atmospheric sound, then we can make it happen. So
yeah, I think a band like that, we can kind of prep each other for or vice versa. But probably the biggest contrast, yeah, we opened, and this is not the new stuff on the Belly of the Well material. Actually, we opened for Today Is the Day, so that was probably the biggest contrast we played.
Yeah.
So they had some diehard Today Is the Day fans, kind of wide mouth and open eye, like.
Yeah, kind of as evidence as evidence of the lack of our sound in our scene. When Today of the Day and KO Dot were on tour through Baton Rouge, the local promoter reached out to us because he heard that we were sort of spacey and ambient. So there was no one else in Baton Rouge that he thought would fit, because he had connections to all these, metalcore and all these different genres. So they got us on the bill, and we were a little light when it was all said and done in comparison, obviously. KO Dot was sort of in between, though. I mean, they have some stuff that's, closer. But yeah, both phenomenal bands. Like Steve from Today's the Day wore an Ambassador shirt during the set. He bought one before, so I mean they were great. But yeah, that's
Absolutely.
They were scraping to find someone to fit with them.
But I think this album, it's unfortunate that the time we're in, because this album was actually, custom tailored to play live, and we recorded it live. We wrote it as such, and we just can't wait to be able to start gigging and put it out there, man, because that's what it was built for.
Yeah.
Was that we said we run it, was it 32 minutes or whatever it is?
Yeah, roughly.
That's right in that, get up there and do our thing. So I can't wait for that. And it, I think it hits a little harder than the last album. So, we may be able to fill that gap a little bit more. But
yeah.
But yeah, I mean, we don't mind being the contrast and providing that change of pace, And I think people that go out and to see bands, they want to see a little contrast and get a little different flow throughout the night. I think it helps.
Yeah.
Right on. I'd love to hear this whole thing live. That'd be amazing. I didn't really realize that was the intention, but now that I think about it, it would work completely as just a set piece by itself live.
Yes, exactly.
Or an encore if you guys played a full headline set by yourselves.
Yeah.
That'd be pretty badass. I actually always say, I would say that KO Dot would be a good match for you guys. I've seen them. They're
yeah. Me and Gabe still talk about that. It was like, man, if they ever come back, man, we got to get with them, because we enjoy KO Dot a lot. And I went back through a lot of their material, man, and they span a very, very wide gap. They can do a lot of things. So
yeah.
And Steve is great. I love Steve Austin. That was actually one of our last shows that we covered before this all happened, was Today Is the Day and The Obsessed here in Brooklyn. And we interviewed Steve and hung out with him. And like, if you really he's got like 40, 50 records complete.
Right.
And they're all getting reissued actually from his new record deal. And a lot of them are all over the map. It wasn't just like bludgeoning extreme music the whole time. He is a guy, he would tell you himself, he enjoys a wide range of music that is not just one thing. But it's funny that people just remember him for these like very iconic extreme albums, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Great guy. Great. Glad he was good. Cool with you guys. That's awesome. I love to hear stories like that. When
I'm sure you don't always get treatment like that from the touring act. I know we haven't in the past from some other bands that'll go unnamed, but everyone has that.
Gouja. Yeah, man, I hear you. It's tough, but I like you guys sticking to your guns, and hopefully, I don't know what's going to happen this year or what the story's like where you guys are. I feel like this year's already a wash. Hopefully next year we get some shows and we get to see you guys maybe out on the road. Have you guys done like a lot of regional touring?
Well, I mean, we did some Gulf Coast touring. Nothing terribly extensive. We would like to. We would like to a lot more, actually. So, I mean, the goal is for this album to get out and tour a lot more. We were kind of a little more naive to think that we were going to be able to reach reach enough people through the internet. But, we soon learned, that it doesn't exactly work like that. I mean, people need to see you live. And then when you make investments in merch and things like that, I mean, you have to sell it, and that's a big part of it because we're always a lot more successful selling merch when we're playing shows. And getting out and just becoming a better band and getting our name out there. I mean, of course, we have some markets that are fairly close to us, like Houston and Austin and Dallas and things like that. That it's really important that we get into that scene. At least get out there, twice a year and play some of these places. But outside of that, it's a challenge in the South because I mean we play New Orleans quite a bit. But I mean, if you start looking east, you don't really get anything, any really strong scenes until you get, closer to, Atlanta and, Savannah maybe and Jacksonville and some places in Florida. So it's kind of more out west for us for the most part. And, I mean, we have some other local scenes that if you call it touring, I mean, we would go through Lafayette and Lake Charles, Louisiana, in New Orleans and things like that, throughout the coast part of Louisiana. But I mean, we would love to get out to the, East Coast, West Coast, nothing. We're going to start off regionally first and kind of see how that goes. I mean, we're all, we all have families and things like that. So we're not the 21-year-old that's just going to hop in a van and take off for a couple months, so we have to work it within our schedules and, kind of learn that kind of life, music kind of balance. Because it's fairly new for us, but we do want to put a lot of emphasis on getting on the road as soon as we can.
Right on. Glad you mentioned Savannah. I feel like Savannah is a place where you guys would do very well. It used to have a big post rock and they still do have kind of a sludge metal scene, and I think those kind of genres overlap a little bit. And
Yeah.
I think about a band like Black Tusk would be a band that you guys would go
Yeah.
well with. It'd be a really good A-B salt and pepper kind of thing where you guys would complement each other. I love those guys. And obviously Savannah was at one point the home of Baroness and the home of Kailisa and bands like that. So not anymore, but used to be. There's definitely, this record has legs. Like I said, I feel like this is a really good step forward for you guys, and I'm encouraged, and I would like to get people hopefully to hear it more, and I'm sure you as well.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Yeah, man. Thanks for hanging out with Ghost Cult. I really appreciate getting to know you guys. I'm sure we'll circle back, and hopefully next time either it's I get down south again, which I'm overdue for a trip, or you guys come up to Brooklyn, or one of our other places we cover shows, and we get to see you live in the flesh and all that.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we appreciate it. Look forward to talking to you again.
Yeah, man. Thank you guys. Have a great night.
All right, you too.
Thanks.